Cassandra, the youngest princess of Kingdom of Speldaria, hustled through the vast corridors of her father's castle, her flared gown hiked up, held by her hands on both sides of her thighs so she wouldn't trip. She had heard a rumor, a fleeting rumor. She needed to confirm it. Throwing open her bedchamber's sleek door, she entered her faintly illuminated room. It creaked. The light from outside crept in and softly lighted her wooden post bed. An astonishingly startled scream left her throat as her hands clamped her mouth shut, for the sight in front of her was anything but normal. Tied to her bed with silver chains was a marvel of a virile male specimen. Hunkish, rugged, potent. These were the words that flashed in Cassandra's brain as she awkwardly stared at the man whose naked torso rose and fell with every breath he took. His buffed muscles relaxed and strained. His corded biceps flexed against the chains that held him in place. An ochre loincloth had been elegantly draped around his tapered waist, and that was the only piece of cloth that covered his marvel of a body. Bicep of his right arm had a black tattoo of a chimera, eating its own tail. The creature had wings like a dragon's, roaring head and body of a lion, the tail of a snake. Who was he? Why was he tied to her bed? His eyes were closed and silken strands of lustrous brown shade curtained them. Cassandra's heart restlessly thumped as she took a tentative step forward, as if afraid to awaken the sleeping beast. Another step, and then a careful third one. Now she stood directly in front of him. Why did she feel so hot? Taking a strong whiff, she could smell him. An earthly scent mingled with sand and sage. The essence of sun-baked sand was so potent on him. How could she smell him like that? Why was it so enticingly palpable? Shaking the ridiculous thoughts, she finally willed her tongue to speak. Who are you? She questioned, trying to put authority in her voice, and failing miserably. His lowered head slowly lifted at her question, and sultry liquid gold-infused orbs quietly opened and collided with her violet ones. A sizzling chill skittled down her spine, for his sharp and demanding eyes seemed to peer deep into her soul's. His extremely tan skin and gold-dusted eyes reminded her of the desert. A desert prince would be a very profound title for this mysterious man. Deep silence lingered as he sinfully stared at her. His wandering eyes slid to the perfect slopes of her neck, and then down to her ample bosoms, which were shackled in a bone-crushing corset. Cassandra felt exposed, and she quickly covered them with her arms. Her eyes slowly scowled at his atrocious actions. The room's door was thrown open again, and like a wind from hell, Cassandra's eldest sister, Stephanie, glided in. An ever-present snicker remained permanently etched on her face. Well, seems like my little sister got her present. Isn't he something? She licked her scarlet-painted lower lips with her tongue. Is this another of your jests, Stephanie? Who is he? And why is he tied to my bed? Cassandra demanded, turning and frowning at her eldest sister. To add color to your dull life, he is a gift from the notorious shifter Alpha of Dusartine. Heard he wants a truce with our father, hence the gift. Since you will be taking part in the arena, she chuckled, her voice grated on Cassandra's temples. Stephanie took a step closer to the tied man. Arena? What? Cassandra shrieked in disbelief. She hated the arena more than anything. You will learn soon, but tying him to your bed was my idea. Maybe you could finally get some with a shifter slave and give everyone some gossip. Hopefully, Commander Raziel will end his engagement with you, finally seeing how pathetic you are. Cassandra's face heated up with shame at her sister's words, and she stole a look at the man who was watching Stephanie with a newfound loathing. This look was so different from what he was giving her a while ago. You have no shame, and you thought it would be a good idea to tie him with silver chains, knowing it's lethal for them and causes them immense pain, she pointed out. Stephanie threw her head back and laughed at her words. You think I care about low-life shifters? I am not you. Why don't you go and free him? It will be fun seeing you do that without magic, and I have informed the servants to not help you. Cassandra shook her head, but she was not surprised. Stephanie liked torturing others, especially those weaker than her. Besides, your betrothed will be thrilled to hear you have a new boy toy. Stephanie cackled like a banshee yet again, her voice grating on Cassandra's nerves. You are despicable, Stephanie. Cassandra's loathing tone didn't sit right with her sister. Her whole fake facade of glee disappeared. Everything about her darkened as a shadow emerged from her. An extension of her, but dark and creepy with daggers for fingers. Before Cassandra could shriek away from her, she struck her across the face. The razor-sharp blades cut her cheek and the upper part of her lip open. She shielded her face with her hand. Cassandra whimpered as blood oozed out of her open wound, but louder than her whimper was a warning growl that resonated from the man's burly chest. His honey-shaded eyes turned pitch black like bottomless pits of hell. Oh, look at that. Two pathetic people caring for each other. He already shows concern for you. Stephanie's hollow laugh echoed in the room as the shadow receded, and that bright disposition was back on full display. Cassandra was clutching her bleeding cheek, putting pressure to lessen the bleeding. Stephanie flicked her hair back and with a perpetual sneer, exited her room. The man in the chains watched her receding figure with disgust-filled eyes. Cassandra turned her attention to him. How is she going to get him out of these chains, which must be burning his skin? How to get you out of these? She forgot her bleeding cheek and stepped closer to the man. His eyes wavered to her as she touched the metal cuffs on his broad wrists and tried to pull them apart. The smell of old books and sage hit her in torrents. The potent smell of this brawny male. She stopped breathing through her nose for a second and concentrated. She needed him free and out of her room before her fiancé would see a man in her room and find another reason to dislike her. Her cheeks had turned baby pink and her lips were pulled tightly shut as she used all the force her delicate body possessed, but the cuffs wouldn't budge. The cheeky male was watching her with his lips flatlining as if he was trying not to smile at her futile attempt. His brows were slightly raised, seeing how she was huffing and puffing, the upper swells of her chest rising as she pulled. It's no use. I will get some tools. Hold up, she finally declared, giving up. As Cassandra stepped back and was about to turn to head out of the room, she heard clanking sounds behind her. She turned and loudly gasped as the chains holding him cluttered to the ground and the ruggedly hulking male stepped off her bed, free of any shackles holding him. He stood so tall, so broad, that her room seemed to have shrunk in his colossal presence. Her astonishment molded into a scowl as she wondered. How the hell did he do that? And couldn't he have done it before? He needed a spectacle as well. She was about to speak when a messenger knocked on her door and announced, Lady Cassandra, your father requests your presence. Hurry along. Perfect. Now she had to face her ruthless father. What did he want now? Cassandra LeBlanc was led to the private chamber of her father, Thalorian LeBlanc, one of the 5 high mages of the magical kingdom of Speldaria, but the one who held the highest authority. She tentatively knocked, and nervousness gripped her like a vice. Enter! Thalorian's deep, gruff voice sounded from inside, and her heart clenched. Her father could be cruel and ruthless if he chose to be. Cassandra opened the ochre-shaded double door by pushing against it with her shaking hands and entered tentatively. Her father was elegantly perched upon his throne-like high seat with his hands steepled in front. His hawk-like eyes were focused on his youngest offspring, the one he considered to be his biggest shame. Father, you called for me. Cassandra respectfully folded her hands in front and slightly lifted her head to make eye contact with her father. Thalorian leaned back in his chair and asked, Yes. Have you met the barbarian brute sent for you? I have, she politely answered in a meek voice, lowering her eyes. You are taking part in the arena this year, making your debut. He will be your representative. Ensure he gives us a spectacular show. We are inviting shifter alphas this year. A peaceful treaty is what we sought. Don't disappoint me more, Thalorian informed her with disgust visible in his voice. So what Stephanie had said was true. Her father was indeed throwing her into the arena, knowing she had no magic. She wouldn't survive much longer. A shiver scuttled down her spine and settled in her gut, spreading panic throughout her system. But She lifted her desperate eyes to plead her case. There will be no buts, Cassandra. Do your duty as it's required of you. Go train now. Make yourself useful for once. I desire this event to be unparalleled to what anyone has ever experienced before. He paused. The Alpha of Dusartine has personally requested you be the participant. Exactly the reason he sent one of his best warriors. It's all a sport. Let's give them an impressive one. Train? What was she to train for? Why was an Alpha interested in seeing someone like her in the arena? Was he as sadistic as the men of her kingdom? Arena had teams with 2 people making a single one. 1 mage and 1 warrior. Mages strategized with their partners and planned their battles. They had each other's back and worked as one unit to win. But without magic, how was she to defend him? She had decent sword skills, but will they even come in handy against magic? Lightning-fast shifters, vampires, orcs, and who knew whom her father had invited this year? It was useless to argue with her father, though. Yes, father, she defeatedly said and bowed in respect. She was suffocating under his scrutinizing gaze and wished to leave here as soon as possible. Her body moved, her feet shuffled, taking her closer to the door. A few more steps and she would be out of there. Die if you have to in the arena, but don't bring shame to me. A dead daughter is better than a shamed one. His heartless words had her halting, but she didn't spin around to face him. Tears scalded the back of her eyes, but none escaped. Then I guess I will die, she stiffly said before rushing out of that stifling place. Her feet made no noise against the cold, colorless floor. A lady through and though she had been taught to be, even when her life was falling apart. Her father had never disciplined her by vetting out physical punishments, but his emotional torture was enough to leave her soul in shambles. If only her mother was alive. In her quickness, she bumped into someone and almost fell to the ground if her wrist hadn't been caught by a strong hand. She was pulled forward and was made to stand on her feet. Her breath becoming irregular for her heart was going berserk. Raising her head, she wished she hadn't been hasty. He was the last person she wished to see in that moment. Is all well with you? He slowly asked, steadying her and letting go of her wrist quickly, as if her touch had scalded him. Cassandra hurriedly composed herself and curtsied. I apologize. I shouldn't have made haste. No apologies needed. Is it true, though? A hint of curiosity she sensed in his voice as his cerulean eyes tried to read her face. True what? Her heart throbbed in her swelled chest. She had a hint of what he wished to inquire. That you are taking part in the arena, and already have a warrior gifted to you by the Alpha of Dusartine for it, her fiancé asked, a hint of surprise in his voice, but no possessiveness, as should have been. He could have prevented this. He was her father's right-hand man. Yes, Commander Raziel, she politely answered. No butterflies were dancing in her stomach when she spoke to him. They had long died because of his indifference. There was a time when she was mesmerized by the handsome mage commander, like a naive girl with unrealistic dreams. He was hers now, and yet he wasn't. The arrangement was forced by her father on the pretext she wouldn't find a good match elsewhere, and his biggest shame would remain under his roof. She felt nothing now, empty like a hollowed shell, whose pearl had been lost. The way he spoke to her, all bland and emotionless, it killed her more every time. But she had learned to guard her heart around him. He didn't affect her the way he used to, and she wondered, being the commander working directly under her father, he knew someone was sent for her, and yet he made no effort to interfere. She half expected him to say that he would speak to her father that she wasn't fit for the arena, where blood flowed like water, and only people with years of training dared set foot in it. But Cassandra was stretching her luck. Good luck then. I will see you around, he said politely but without a hint of envy or unease. It felt like he was almost relieved. No one loves the cursed child like her who had killed her mother during childbirth, and turned out to be such a disappointment. Being a mage princess and possessing no magic, she was an abomination. Why would a mage of his caliber ever want or love her? He seemed disgusted, almost. Of course, she answered, trying to keep the hurt and bitterness from creeping up in her voice. The unshed tears were held at bay, too. She watched him leave. His blue and silver cloak effortlessly flowed behind him, and so did his long raven hair. A straight braid rested elegantly in the center of his locks. With a restless sigh, Cassandra turned her head and headed back to her room. She had to have a conversation with the mysterious warrior. He did within a few minutes what Raziel couldn't do in all their years of knowing each other. He had made her heart race like it had never and before. But how? Was he mute though? How did he escape the silver chains? So many questions crowded her already stuffed brain. There was only one way to find out. She had to go speak to him. Her steps picked up the pace as she hoped that servants had moved him from her chambers and assigned him some guest chamber. But all her hopes were deflated when she neared her room and found him standing outside, with his overly brawny and tanned arms crossed over his toned chest. And then his gold-dusted eyes lifted and found hers, pinning her to the ground and stealing her very breath. Cassandra's breath was stuck in her throat for a while. The way this man was unnerving her was not ordinary. Such feelings didn't exist for her. Clearing her throat, Cassandra finally willed herself to step forward and address him. "Let me arrange the guest chamber for you. You can wait here." The slight tilt of his head and that deep inhale unsettled Cassandra even more. Instead of speaking, he only stared with those gold-infused eyes. She wondered if he even understood the language. Sighing heavily, Cassandra's always straight shoulders slightly slouched, and she let her arms fall. Turning around, she began to head for the guest wing of their castle. A few steps in, she felt his presence right behind her. Abruptly turning around resulted in his colliding with her. She flailed again. Her mouth opened in shock, but his strong hands caught her by the waist and had her flush against his naked chest. 2 times in a matter of a few minutes. That's my personal best level of awkwardness of falling and being rescued by men, Cassandra thought to herself, while blushing all shades of red. But there was a stark difference in how both men had rescued her. While her fiancé had simply stabilized her and let go instantly, this male was holding her snugly against his glistening chest. Her face was buried in his pectorals. She could feel the swirling heat, the unique scent, and cords of muscles that were perfectly packed on his torso. Most importantly, she could sense the static sparks that traveled from wherever he touched and made her skin tingle. Plus, that intoxicating scent seemed to ooze out of every pore. His embrace was gentle and warm in comparison to how rough his hands were. She could feel them through the fabric of her gown. "Careful!" He slowly breathed on the outer edges of her ear, making her bristle in his arms. The voice so dark, rich, and almost sinful. "So the beast can speak." She breathlessly mumbled to herself and made the mistake of lifting her eyes. The pools of gold held only her as they swirled and almost sucked her inside. Her breath was stuck in her throat as her lips slightly parted and she tried to detangle herself from his extremely thick arms. A flicker of disapproval flashed on his face at her actions, but he let her go. She seemed overwhelmed, and they were in the open area. She scampered away as soon as he removed his arms from around her and accusingly asked, but she wasn't ready for the answer. "You can speak?" "When needed," he instantly replied in such a deep tone that sent a pang of shiver running through her. A hint of tease could be sensed. "Good to know. Why are you following me?" she asked with a scowl while trying to get her frantic heartbeat under control. He didn't answer, only gazed at her, rattling her. She began to walk again, and he followed but leaned in and whispered. The hot breath made the tiny hair on her nape stand erect. "To save you from falling on that pretty ass and hurting yourself." A deep shade of crimson was what Cassandra's face turned into. Even a tomato couldn't rival it. She abruptly turned to face him, the scowl transforming to a full-on glower. Did he just speak about my ass? Is that what he had been looking at? "Stop looking at my ass. Keep your eyes here." She pointed to her face with her other hand on her waist. He seemed unfazed, almost amused. A slow smile was curling up on his fuller lips. They were interrupted by a servant. She bowed her head and waited for their staring contest to end. "Yes, Tabia." Cassandra finally turned her head to face her. She was her father's special messenger. "According to your father's wishes, The guest chamber in the east wing has been arranged for your warrior. Your father says all his needs and requirements are your responsibility. There shouldn't be any slacking in his care, she informed Cassandra, almost haughtily. Servants didn't respect her, knowing that she wasn't her father's favored child. The other two were. The lack of magic made circumstances even more difficult for Cassandra. I will handle it, she told Tabia in a calm voice, knowing they wouldn't help her and would only add to her misery. But the man with golden eyes observed how she had spoken to Cassandra. The playfulness he had held while talking to Cassandra disappeared, replaced by flickers of disapproval and darkness. His annoyed glance flitted towards Tabia, and she felt an immense surge of raging energy emanating within that strange man. She instantly retreated and ran away like a wet cat. Come, I will take you to your chamber and will get you something to eat. Cassandra diverted his attention towards her, and all darkness dissipated. The rest of their short journey went in silence as they arrived at the intricately designed wooden door, and she threw it open from the silver knockers. Here, make yourself comfortable. I will bring you food. You must be hungry, she said while remaining outside the chamber. Come inside. We need to talk. Food can wait. He stepped in and held the door open for her. It was highly inappropriate for her to be alone with him in his private chambers. But then he had been literally thrust into her life, tied to her bed. What more could go wrong? Not experiencing any negative vibes from him, Cassandra took a deep breath and entered the place. They had a lot to discuss related to the arena, and she needed to talk to him as well and tell him how useless she was. Pathetic, to be exact. He wouldn't treat her any differently than others. Once she was inside, he closed the door and locked it, making her heart leap. The natural light from the window flooded the room as he sauntered over on his thickly muscled legs and planted himself on the armchair. Pointing to his lap, he teased with a twisted smile. Come sit, and I might tell you my name. Cassandra's mouth opened, and her jaw hit the floor at his audacity. Cassandra took his invitation and flirt in a very different light. The distrust that had developed of people from constantly getting hurt by her close ones fueled her fears. She believed he thought her to be a pushover just like her family did, just because she couldn't defend herself when they used magic against her. Her nostrils flared, and those cheeks reddened in embarrassment. Knowing her father had asked her to treat him like a proper guest of the Alpha and not disappoint him, she believed this man was playing with her feelings too, understanding by now that no one cared for her except Lotus. Don't disrespect me. I am engaged, and although we are to work together for the arena, no way I am sitting anywhere near or in your lap, she told him flatly. The uneasiness in her pit kept growing from his sultry gaze. You will be comfortable. I have thick thighs. He patted his right one. The muscles rippled under his contoured hand. The man certainly didn't know when to give up. Was he that stubborn, or did his alpha put him up to it? To flirt with her just to embarrass or humiliate her? If anyone were to see her like that, her reputation would be ruined, and her fiancé, who already remained detached, might find a reason to break off their engagement. I would like to politely refuse. Can we speak about how we are going to survive that arena? It's not a child's play. Both of us can die there. Cassandra tried to change the subject. We won't die. I will protect you, he nonchalantly said, placing one of his extremely tanned legs on the other and placing his elbow on the armrest. Protect? Did he really mean what he said? No males ever tried to protect her. He sat like a king, not an ordinary slave, though that slave collar around his neck said otherwise. Cassandra couldn't decipher this man at all, and his objectives. She had to be transparent with him. He needed to know what he was getting himself in. Cassandra didn't wish to be the cause of his death. I don't have any magic. All I can do is a few tricks with swords and kunai knives, she stated, a hint of sadness coating her words while readying herself for any derogatory remark he might float her way. She crossed her arms, hugging herself with her hands, a way to protect herself whenever people slandered her. That's how it always happened. The youngest mage princess of the greatest magic kingdom had no magic. What a joke. Instead, he spoke smoothly, as if he had been expecting the very answer from her. There was no derision, only swirling softness in his eyes. "Show me, and we will strategize from there. Don't worry about magic." Cassandra blinked several times, hoping she had heard him right. Finally breaking out of the stupor, she said, "We will need to go to the training grounds. I can show you the arena as well. You will get an idea." He slowly got up and ambled towards her. "Lead the way, Princess Cassandra," he requested, as if tasting her name on his tongue, notes so deep that they unsettled her. Although the word princess was said with a tease instead of being used as a title. Gulping with some difficulty, she willed herself to speak. "Firstly, tell me your name." A vague smile tugged at his lips, turning them upwards. "Cyrus. That's what they call me anyways." He merely shrugged his shoulders as if it wasn't a big deal. "Cyrus," Cassandra repeated his name under her breath and wondered what it meant. "Thank you. Come." She led him through different corridors of the grand castle, with its majestic towers and rich tiled floors. The exuberance and riches were evident in every nook of this place, and yet Cyrus's eyes were fixated only on her. He remained behind her by a step, but she could sense his looming presence. It unwinded something inside her, something she didn't understand. The candles sputtered in their candle stands, and the lanterns lighted the corridors they passed through. She grabbed one lantern off the hook from the wall. The silence was awkward. "You are not disappointed?" She shattered it with her question. It had been on the tip of her tongue. "Disappointed?" he blankly asked. "Every other participant will have a magic-wielding partner which will enhance their chances at winning. And here I am." She couldn't help but lament, lowering her eyes as their feet kept moving. "I was sent as your warrior for a reason. It will be my duty to protect you in that arena." He vocalized so self-assuredly that Cassandra wished she had half of that confidence which oozed out of this mysterious man from a strange land. Did he really wish to protect her? Or was it part of some elaborate scheme? Only time would tell. Walking outside the castle, Cassandra trudged along the winding path that led to the giant structure which they called the arena. The colossal structure was constructed from massive white limestone blocks and extended to a height of several stories. The exterior was adorned with a series of arches, stacked in multiple tiers, giving the structure a sense of elegance, irrespective of the bloodbath that occurred within its walls. "Here," Cassandra announced as they entered through one of the entrance arches of white marble adorned with several gemstones. Cyrus watched the arena with wild admiration settling in his eyes. That animalistic side of his, which he kept buried under, began to surface, sensing the blood that spilt there. Cassandra raised the glass metallic lantern as they entered the dark passageway. Her companion didn't need light to see in the dark, though. The sharp tang of dampness abused their nostrils as they walked through the passage and arrived at the vast open area of rammed earth. The walls on the four sides were adorned with weapons of all kinds, while raised platforms behind them held the spectator seats and a grand podium for the important guests, members of the royal family. "Not bad," Cyrus observed. The gold in his eyes was flickering with multiple shaded flecks, as if a conglomeration of colors has been birthed in them. Cassandra was beyond mesmerized. She had never seen something like that before. "Let's begin. Show me what you got." He addressed her with a hint of amusement. Yanking a sword off the walls of the arena, Cassandra took her stance. It was all thanks to Lotus, her middle sister, that she was able to find a decent enough sword instructor to learn some proper moves. The only person in this damned place who treated her like a human being. Cyrus did the same. He took hold of a long, hilted sword and summoned her with his free hand. Standing tall and firm, his tanned skin glistened under the dying sun as he challenged in his twisted voice. "Let's see what you are made of." Cassandra had a proper gown on. No way was she in a garb appropriate for dueling. But she hadn't had the opportunity to change, so she had to make do. They faced each other. While Cassandra was determined, Cyrus had a smirk going. She thrust forward with the sword aimed at Cyrus's neck. She slightly jumped and aimed for his jugular, but he was faster, more agile on his feet. His sword clanked with hers, evading her attack and defusing it. At the same time, He was slightly surprised at the raw strength she had put behind her sword. For a fragile-looking creature, she knew how to carry a sword. "Not bad," he declared, slightly impressed. His eyes shimmered with appreciation. She didn't let her guard down. Cassandra had taken her position again. The sword swished in her hand as she readied to launch the attack towards his ribs now. The soft spot, which lay between the ribs and the abdomen. Cyrus could see she knew which areas to target. A little more training, and she could be a trained fighter. He jumped back just in time to dodge her attack. She slashed at him again, the sword making a whooshing sound as it cut through the air. Cyrus blocked it with his own, and the clanking of their swords continued. Cassandra's teeth tightly gritted together, while Cyrus remained comparatively relaxed. Cassandra bent low on the floor and aimed for his bare legs this time. She swiftly moved at a 360 angle. Her sword swirled like a whirlwind of steel. Cyrus jumped, and yet again escaped her attack. The blade only sliced the air. The smile on his face kept widening. She had stunned him with her skills. Cassandra, on the other hand, didn't waste a second. She knew even a difference of a blink of an eye could cost one's life in a duel. She straightened and came at him with rapid strikes, but Cyrus was ready for her. He feigned to his left, and Cassandra followed, but he quickly spun to his right, catching her off guard. Finding the opening he was looking for her, brought the tip of his sword towards her sleek, vulnerable neck. Catching her waist, he spun her around and caught her in his thick, muscled arms. Her back collided with his chest with layers and layers of muscles. Her very breath was almost knocked out. Cassandra tried to bring her sword over her head to attack him, but he anticipated her movement and caught her wrist, and the grip so lethal and strong. She was sure if he applied enough pressure it would break, and yet she knew he was being gentle with her. He pried the sword away from her hand. It fell on the ground with a low, cluttering sound. Impressive. He peeked at her over her shoulder. The corset in that awkward gown had half of her breasts popping out. Her chest was heaving as she tried to catch her breath, and beads of sweat trickled down and disappeared between her cleavage like pearls. Not that he minded the view, but she wriggled in his hold like a fish caught in a hook. She was hyper-aware of his wanton eyes glued to where they shouldn't be and understood the double meaning behind his word. Her body lost control every time he touched her. Those calloused hands she wished on her bare skin caressing. The shame her thoughts brewed turned her into a beetroot. Cyrus took a deep inhale as if taking in her scent. This unnerved her even more. "Let go," she sternly ordered, and he obeyed unwillingly, dropping his arms. Cassandra quickly put a respectable distance between them and turned to face him with disappointment flashing on her face. "I can't even defeat you," she said in annoyance, trying to adjust her uncomfortable gown. It had been showing him more than she intended to. Ouch! He dramatically placed his hand on his perspiring chest, as if she had bruised his ego. The tiny droplets oozed out of his skin and shone like gold dust against his rusty skin. His jawline appeared even sharper against the dying rays of the setting sunday. "I am a trained warrior. That's what I have done all my life. You did well. We need a better strategy if we want to have even a chance of surviving. My eldest sister, along with her vampire warrior, is the reigning champion. The word losing doesn't exist for her, and she doesn't mind playing dirty as long as she wins," Cassandra said sadly, picking up her sword and returning it to its original place. "Just fight like that, whoever comes your way, and leave the rest to me. I will handle your sister." Cyrus was still speaking when they were interrupted by a shrill, dramatic scream. Cassans. Cassandra had to facepalm herself before muttering, "She is here." Cyrus turned to see who the voice belonged to. "Cass, you better be in there and make it worth me having to pass through that smelly passageway." The annoyed voice of Lotus came through one of the tunnels leading into the arena. Sighing heavily, Cassandra called out, "I am here." A young woman with brown, curled-up hair and a very fancy rose-shaded gown emerged. The frills, laces, and bodice were a piece of art on her gown. Heavy jewelry adorned her beautiful neck and dainty wrists. Instead of a smile, she wore a small scowl on her cute little face. Two maids followed her, fanning her with hand fans and carrying the side of her gown. "There you are. You know how I hate this place and had to walk through the mud?" Look, my shoes are all dirty. She gestured to her maids, who raised her gown from the sides a bit further, and she pointed towards her shining shoes. Not a speck of dust could be seen on them. Cassandra had to bite her lower lip to hold back a snort. Lotus and her dramatics. "Why did you follow me here?" Cassandra asked, facing her sister, who was now watching Cyrus with a keen interest and scrunching her eyes. "Well, I heard Father's making you participate in the arena, and you received a gift from an alpha. That was a lot, even for your standards. Just needed to make sure. Is that him?" Lotus grabbed a hand fan from one of the maids and began to fan herself more rapidly. Beads of perspiration were breaking on her dainty forehead. "It's what it is, and yes," Cassandra answered, knowing how difficult it was for Lotus to break out of her bubble and come all the way to this filthy place. But she was the only one who didn't hate Cassandra and cared for her. Punishments by their father and Stephanie were what kept Cassandra from involving Lotus too much in her affairs. She didn't want her sister to get hurt because of her. "Wow, you shifter men are made different. Look at all these muscles." She stepped closer and poked Cyrus's arm with the tip of her fan, just to check them. The curiosity sitting on her face like a cute cat. Cyrus narrowed his eyes at her, not at all pleased at being poked. Cassandra had on an apologetic look now. "Is it true you people drink the soup of the bones of your victims to prolong your age and build all these muscles?" Lotus curiously questioned, waving her fan in front of him while craning her neck to take in all of his majestic build. She stood at least a foot smaller than him. Cyrus lowered his head, placed both his hands on his tapered waist, and flashed her an animalistic smile that bordered on insanity before crawling out. "Yes, especially of pretty girls who talk too much." Lotus placed a hand on her heart and dramatically leaned her body back. "Blimey, how barbaric." Cassandra was shaking her head by now, understanding Cyrus was lying and Lotus was overreacting. "We should head back. Cyrus needs to eat, not the bone soup but real food, and we need to discuss more strategies to survive that arena." Cassandra separated the two and took Lotus's hand, propelling her forward. She leaned on Cassandra and whispered in her ear as they began to walk back. "That man has insane vibes. Be careful, Cass. I can't believe our father is doing this. What does Commander Raziel has to say about this?" "He hardly acknowledges my presence. At this point, I believe he must be delighted that he may get rid of me for good. I am nothing but a thorn in his throat." Cassandra sighed, her shoulders slumping. Maids and Cyrus walked at a distance from them, letting the sisters talk. "Nonsense. How many times have I told you to dress in finer gowns and tame these wild hair of yours? Be more proper, and you will win his heart in no time," Lotus instructed, adjusting her own well-curled hair on her forehead. "There is no spark between us, sister. No amount of clothes or powder will fix it. I am doomed. I was doomed the day I was born." Sometimes she wondered about her crimes to have been given such a miserable life. Maybe it was for the best to die in that arena. "You are not doomed. We all are too self-conceited to realize the goodness you hold, Cassandra. You are destined for greater things. I just know it." A faint smile graced Cassandra's lips at her sister's words. She said, "I appreciate you, sister. Can I make a small request?" "Of course, anything. Can you arrange a meal for Cyrus? He hasn't eaten anything since he arrived, and you know how servants are with me." "Don't worry, it will be arranged. I will send my special maids with food, 3 times a day, as long as he doesn't eat them." Lotus turned her head at the last sentence and cast a dubious look his way. He flashed an equally infuriating smile back at Lotus, as if hearing what she had said. They arrived outside his room. Lotus and her maids took their leave, while Cassandra lingered. Before Cyrus could go inside his chamber, she spoke, making him halt. "Look, I will train day and night to hone my skills, to become better, and not be the reason you go down. But if it comes to it that I become the weakest link, then you should let me be. Just save yourself." His head turned to face her, and she could clearly see the wrinkled forehead and annoyance-riddled eyes.